The first term of the 2021 to 2022 academic year has been held fully online. But while face to face classes have for the moment been replaced with virtual teaching and learning, a lot is happening at several schools across the island in an effort to get them ready for when physical classes resume. Something the education officials are hoping will be a reality by January 2022.
I wanted to give an update about the progress of works that would have occurred under the domestic summer program. I think every year the public is aware that we try to take advantage of the summer program, take advantage of the summer period as well, and try to ensure that we can do as many major works to the schools as possible, which cannot ordinarily be done during the school term. And so I would like to say that perhaps we've had some COVID positives in this respect, in that because of the extended period of time that our students have been out of school, we've had the opportunity to do a little bit more than ordinarily we would have been able to do in previous years. We have had 25 schools under the domestic summer program identified, and of those schools, we have about 4 schools that are still in the later stages of completion. In the last few months, we would have had some challenges in relation to Hurricane Elsa. Hurricane Elsa damaged over 60 schools across the educational system, and those schools obviously now require some minor works to be done to them, which are ongoing as well. We had some extensive damage at schools like Courage and Parry. There was some damage at the Princess Margaret Secondary School. And we also had some challenges with the roof structure in the staff room at the Harrison College School as well. That notwithstanding, those works, in particular Harrison College, will start shortly. The other 2 institutions, we are in the process of finalizing the tendering for that exercise to take place. And our anticipation is that we should be in a position to have those schools, if not completed in its entirety, because of the major types of works, that we will certainly have been able to start the process of the renovations at those schools for what I hope to be the start of a term in early January. Now, I say that amidst the background that obviously we've been in discussions with the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We have been talking about how do we get our children back into school. None of us across the ministries want to see students continuously out of school. And so we've been trying to make best efforts to get to a point where we can start the planning process for a start of school in January. Now, this is all dependent, as you could appreciate, on the rate of transmission in the country. It is also dependent on the level of vaccination across the country as well. And so we are continuing to appeal to Barbadians to just help us to help get our students in particular back into the school environment in short order.
The Chief Education Officer, Dr. Ramona Archer Bradshaw, spoke about the importance of the New Horizons Academy being added to the list of secondary schools being offered to students.
This is just one of the schools across Barbados that has received the attention of the Ministry of Education with regard to capital works and minor works. The New Horizons Academy has been earmarked to be a secondary school from January. There has been much discussion within the Ministry of Education with regard to the type of programming that we will have at this school. We understand also that there are schools across Barbados that exceed the capacity, and having this school as a secondary school will allow those schools to at least experience some relief when it comes to the number of students within the classroom. I'm sure that the teachers across the system, as well as the principals, will be happy to know that the government is looking into ensuring that we have spaces that will allow for the transfer of some of the students to allow for them to effectively cater to students' needs.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ingrid Burrows, and I'm going to give you some tips on managing your hypertension. The first thing you should do is to decrease your salt intake. You should keep your salt intake to less than 1 gram a day. This is equivalent to about 1 teaspoon of salt every day. Another thing you should do is to ensure that you're getting enough physical activity. You should aim for 150 minutes of aerobic exercise every week of moderate intensity. For example, brisk walking, light jogging, swimming, or running. This equates to half an hour of exercise 5 days a week. You also want to increase your intake of fresh fruits and vegetables. It is advised that you eat 5 servings of fruit and vegetable every day. And the last thing you can do is monitor your blood pressure at home with a digital machine. This is very important as some patients have elevated blood pressures while in the doctor's office while having normal blood pressures at home. This is called white coat hypertension. Also, if you're taking medication for your hypertension and you notice any changes in your blood pressure, you can call your doctor and he or she can adjust your medications to suit. If your readings are too high or too low, you can inform your doctor and he or she can adjust your medications appropriately. I hope these tips have been helpful.
Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another, get vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function. Remove outdoor objects. Make sure that you went to the ATM. Stock up with water. Make sure you clean the guttering lot. What about clean food? Make sure you got some stock up in your room. Make sure you prop up the paling and tie down the roof. Let me start to prepare real soon. Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another, get vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function.
Everything comes at a cost. And these days, no one profits from the loss, like when a child is forced to trade school day socialization for screen time study, when a disease decides to disrupt our daily routine, and suddenly every one of us is coming undone, losing loved ones' lives and livelihoods, breath and breadwinners, families and festivals and freedoms. God, we feel like it's too much hassle to be human. We will always remember the years the earth spun quieter, but Mother Nature showed us how the simple act of standing still can wage war on an illness. So may we remember how to be our own army, how it takes cooperation for a community to build immunity, how unity can nurse us back to normalcy. Why stop at one family when we could save all?
Now, I'm here at the New Horizon Academy, which I would have announced recently is one of the institutions that we have made a decision at the level of cabinet that we're going to transform into a secondary school. And this will now add an additional school into the number of options available to our students. It will also provide us with the opportunity to reduce the capacity at some of the other schools. And no doubt this will come as a welcome change for a number of teachers who have been complaining about the high number of children in the institutions and the difficulty in coping. There are plans on the horizon for additional schools to be added. I would have mentioned also last week that we have been granted the funds to start the Alma Paris project in St. Peter. That school, as you know, has been closed for many years, and we took a decision back in 2018 that we would make sure that this school was brought back within the educational landscape of the country. I'm pleased to say that next week, if all goes well, the work on that building will begin, and the expected timeline for the completion is about 4 months, but we will be able to certainly welcome a cohort of students, especially in the early phases of around, I believe, 50 to 90 students in the first instance, with an intention that we will be able to increase capacity when we actually are able to complete phase 2 of the project, which will happen in the next financial year as well. So the plans are underway for that institution. We're also in discussions with another well-known institution, which I won't speak to at this point, but we are also looking at a school in the St. Philip area to service students in that vicinity who, again, may be interested in technical and vocational areas as well. So work is ongoing in terms of looking at reducing the school roll numbers across the school plants, and also seeking to take this opportunity, which we consider to be a period of downtime for our schools, to ensure that the necessary renovations that need to happen at the school plants are done during this period. Over the course of this summer program, I believe over 25 contractors, as I said before, have been hired. We've given the opportunity to several persons to engage in the minor works program as well, trying to address a number of the niggling issues that are raised by the teaching profession, certainly raised by the unions as well. And it is our hope that when we return to school early next year, that the conditions in which our students and our teachers are able to operate in are, drastically improved.
Another project the Ministry of Education has been involved in has been extensive renovations at the Wilkie Cumberbatch School. Almost $3 million has been allocated to deal with the challenges there.
We're here today at the Wilkie Cumberbatch Primary School to basically highlight some of the issues that have been plaguing the school, specifically related to the structure and some of the water ingress issues. So we're here at what I would consider to be the first phase of the issue with the roof. And as you can see, there's a series of cracks and signs of moisture ingress on the roof slab. It's important to understand that the floor and roof system at this school was made of a very traditional floor system, which they call the Omnia floor system, and it consists of clay beams and clay pots, which are then covered by a concrete screed. So basically, if this is a cross-section of the roof slab or the floor slab, it's made up of a series of T-beams, which are of clay. After that, you have another T-section, and this is what you call a clay block or a clay pot. Eventually what happens, there's actually a concrete screed that covers this section. Eventually what happens is that the membranes on a lot of these roofs, i.e. the waterproofing barrier, has deteriorated. You'll get moisture coming into the slab, and basically you'll get a crack that starts to form along the bottom of these floors, and basically that is what falls out of place and is the immediate safety issue. Basically, we are proposing to completely remove the roof slab and remove the first floor slab while retaining the existing structure being the reinforced concrete frame, which constitutes of beams and columns, while also maintaining/retaining all of the external facade walls. So we're basically surgically removing the roof slab and the first floor slab, and we're going to install steel beams, which will in turn support a composite floor slab to replace the Omnia floor at roof slab and first floor.
We were commissioned by the Ministry of Education to look at the Wilkie Cumberbatch School. The Wilkie Cumberbatch School, we are looking at it in two phases. Phase one is basically demolition of the existing first floor structure and the demolition of the roof structure. In the replacement of the first floor and roof structure, we are using engineering concrete structure with intermediate steel beams. The main structure of the two-story block, the perimeter walls will be maintained with only the floor and roof being replaced. The floor and roof system will now be a watertight system. The new proposed steel beams that will support the roof and floor structure will be encased so that it becomes fire resistant, so we contain fire within each section of the school, each classroom, and so that if in the case of a fire, the building will not collapse. So it would give students and staff enough time to get off and clear up the structure.
Remedial works were carried out to the main building and the administrative block. This work included window repairs or replacement of defective locks and doors to classrooms and bathroom cubicles, replacement of defective lighting tubes to classrooms and bathrooms, plumbing repairs to bathrooms to include installation of new plumbing fittings and fixtures, among other upgrades. The work seeks to ensure that the refurbished facility meets the acceptable standards conducive to teaching and learning and equipped to integrate to new information and communications technologies. Currently, the physical infrastructure of schools has presented ongoing difficulties to ensure connectivity. This is why fence-to-fence wireless internet connectivity in all schools has become paramount.
Many of the institutions, as the public would be aware, we've had some number of challenges with teachers not being able to access Wi-Fi in different areas of the school plant. And we believe that, especially now that technology really is here to stay, that students are now more familiar with using the devices, and so are the teachers, that we've had to start an approach towards ensuring that all of the schools move in the direction of having Wi-Fi connectivity across the school plants. And so this year we started with a number of our secondary schools and also some of our nursery schools as well, to ensure that those students, when they return, that they will be welcomed with the Wi-Fi connectivity.
To date, just over $370,000 has been allocated to 12 schools in Phase 1 of the Fence-to-Fence Connectivity Project. We hear from the project manager on the Fence-to-Fence project, Suresh Chatrani.
Our schools that were awarded were Harrison College, St. Leonard's Boys School, Courage and Parry, Combermere, and Lester Vaughan. If I can remember or recall, it was August 4th. I received an email from the Ministry of Education to come in for a meeting on August 5th at 11:45. During this meeting, they questioned if I would be able to do these schools and if I can do it within this time-sensitive period, which they gave me till August 31st. Fortunate for my company, we had already 90% of the equipment on island. The containment also we had on island. So pretty much we were actually ready, because we are already involved in not only procurement, but we also do other projects in the private sector. So based on that feedback given to the ministry on August 5th meeting, I received a call on August 6th that I can start with these 5 schools. As project manager for OSI, it's 5 schools to work on, and the deadline from August 6th, we were given August 31st. But we had a few issues at Harrison College that had to be dealt with by Tuesday of the following week. So we received this message on the Friday, and by Tuesday they were doing some preparation for online exams. What I had to do was organize a team to actually start on Friday evening into Saturday and Sunday to prepare the hall at Harrison College. And the hall was set up for about 100 students. So not only do we have to do the hall downstairs, but there were also 2 different layers to the hall. There's a front room and also a back room. So at Harrison College, we prepared the hall to be ready for exams for the trial by Sunday evening. So by Monday, just some tests were taking place, and then on Tuesday, the mock exam took place. So in this just short space of time, we started with the project because it was a time-sensitive project. Base of the whole project going forward, we were able then to complete not only the hall for Harrison College, but also some of their classrooms. So we had a deadline to handle 5 schools in pretty much 4 weeks. So I had to bring on about 2 to 3 teams to help to get this accomplished. Being project manager, that was quite a challenge, because not only do we need the materials to be on island, so it's containment, we need the actual equipment, We need to make sure that we have also access to the schools, and access not only means during the 9 to 5 period, but also even off times, meaning after 5 o'clock. Because in some cases, the schools were still doing exams, the schools were still having people on premise, so we had to work around different schedules. And then with the with the secondary schools, what we found is that not all the rooms, the keys for the different rooms had to be acquired from sometimes teachers. So as a project manager, when you want to get something done, you have a lot of different factors to take into account. The other highlight of doing the project was when we were doing actually Lester Vaughan, because Lester Vaughan, we were at a stage where we were like about 50% complete, and then we receive a call on the Friday again stating that they want to make Lester Vaughan a isolation center for the Ministry of Health. Now Friday, we have 48 hours to get Lester Vaughan ready for isolation center. So I have from 50%, I have to get up to about 90% completed within 48 hours. Now that was a challenge. Started to again get my team together, because we were working on a Saturday, working on Sunday to get it done. And by 12 o'clock on the Sunday, we were told that we have 2 more hours to complete to get the job done. So we were actually given from 48 hours then to 36 hours. But the beautiful thing is, majority of the work was completed, and we were able to get it ready for the isolation center. A few little hiccups because we are rushing 1 week work in about 36 hours. But then by the evening time of Sunday, we were able to get those other issues resolved, because those were issues that were to do with the actual programming of the system. So even if we were not on site, we could have programmed the equipment off site, and we were able to get Lester Vaughan up and running by the deadline of 48 hours. Now with the 5 secondary schools, that we were doing, we actually completed 90% of the work within the deadline that was given. First, the deadline was August 31st. Then the deadline was extended to September 20th, but we were finished by the first week of September. So we actually came in on time, and 90% of the work has been completed on 4 of the schools. The 5th school now, which was Quaritch and Parry, was a little bit more complicated, because after the actual site visit, which took place in, if I'm not mistaken, I think April, we had the freak storm, then we had the hurricane, and as a result of the freak storm, some of the switches, which were the existing infrastructure that were already in place, some of those switches were hit by lightning, and it knocked out the school's connectivity. Then the hurricane also blew a few roofs off at the school, also hampering the project. So what happened in a case like that is, for Quaritch and Parry, we have to wait on repairs to be done at the school before that school could be completed. Otherwise, the time that I had by completing early would have been enough time to finish on time if Quaritch and Parry was also in play. Any other questions?
I want you, St. Leonard's.
Oh, you want me to talk about St. Leonard's? Okay.
You would have touched on St. Leonard's. He would have touched on St. Leonard's. Is there anything you want him to speak on St. Leonard's? Okay.
Because as project manager, St. Leonard's.
But
okay,
I'm glad that you know, seriously, because this particular video doesn't only focus on St. Leonard's.
Yeah.
They actually focus on the other areas.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that, because when I spoke to my director just now, basically,
I could speak 1 minute then on Combermere, because that's the one school I didn't talk about, Combermere, which is the only one that, because he talked St. Leonard's, I talk Harrison College, CP, Lester Vaughan. Is
Vaughan.
Combermere now? Just 1 minute, I can do
go ahead.
Yeah?
Stand by.
We had 5 schools to complete. Now, in 2018, I received a call from the Secretary Treasurer of Combermere where their phone system was down. So this is sort of the precursor to how we got involved in dealing with defense or dealing with the secondary schools. What happened, they had also, because of most of the bad weather, lightning strikes, they had about 5 or 6 switches that were knocked out. So that knocked out the connectivity throughout the school. What that meant was the phones, which also work on the same switches, some were working in some areas of the school, but in the external areas of the school, there was no connectivity. So I was actually brought in to look at that scenario. Now, Combermere was done over 20 or 25 years ago. So a lot of the switches that were there, some were upgraded to later switches, but there was still some infrastructure that was there from since about 20 years. What we found was the fiber that was linking the different areas back to the main sort of the MSI room, which is the location where the ITC functions and where the heart of the operation is. The fiber was actually still good after 20 to 25 years. So what we did is that by testing the fiber, we realized that it was a single mode connection. We were able then to bring the switches and the new equipment to match that. So within about 2 months or 3 months of doing some testing, we were able to get Combermere back online with the phone system in 2018. Because the backbone was already done, when in 2019 and 2020, they were asking for Wi-Fi coverage. It became very easy because the backbone was already done. All we had to do was just add the access points. So Combermere, we were able to complete Combermere very easily. Now, Combermere, we had done about 60% of the school based on the board and based on the alumni of Combermere. But the last 40% was the ministry's involvement, where they contracted me then to finish up Combermere. And right now, Combermere is like 95% done. Just the last 5%, which is for most of the schools, is just the final configuration, which is when the students come back in, and we then do the fine-tuning of the Wi-Fi solutions.
35 on 85 millimeters of mercury for uncomplicated hypertension. Lower home blood pressure targets might be advisable in persons who have the following conditions: diabetes, chronic renal disease, or coronary heart disease. If several readings are above 140 on 90 millimeters of mercury, make an appointment with your physician immediately. Ensure to take your readings at the same time every day. We advise 2 readings in the morning and 2 readings in the evening, initially to profile yourself, taken 1 to 2 minutes apart. However, once you have established a baseline, you can choose a time suitable to your schedule where you can monitor your blood pressure readings.
Everything comes at a cost. And these days, no one profits from the loss, like when a child is forced to trade school day socialization for screen time study, when a disease decides to disrupt our daily routine, and suddenly every one of us is coming undone, losing loved ones' lives and livelihoods, breath and breadwinners, families and festivals and freedoms. God, we feel like it's too much hassle to be human. We will always remember the years the earth spun quieter, but Mother Nature showed us how the simple act of standing still can wage war on an illness. So may we remember how to be our own army, how it takes cooperation for a community to build immunity, how unity can nurse us back to normalcy. Why stop at one family? when we could save all.
Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another, get vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function. Remove outdoor objects. Make sure that you went to the ATM. Stock up with water. Make sure you clean the guttering lot. What about canned food? Make sure you got some stock up in your room. Make sure you prop up the paling and tie down the roof. Let me start to prepare real soon. Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another, get vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function.
St. Leonard's Boys Secondary School is one of the institutions already benefiting from the Fence to Fence project. Gloria Green, the Information Technology Coordinator at the Richmond Gap St. Michael's School, spoke about how important the project is to them.
As ITC, we have a very multifaceted role where we are responsible not only for network administration, but also personal training of staff. We are responsible for all the hardware and software on the compound and all the devices, etc. And at St. Leonard's here, we have a very aged network. This system would have been installed and set up in 2000, from way back in 2000. And all of our hardware, our equipment and so on, our servers and whatnot, would have been from 2003. So when we went into the wireless network, when we were supposed to start fence-to-fence connectivity, we would have found that we would have had a lot of challenges dealing with this new connection. We found that in order to put in our wireless devices and so on, we had network infrastructure that was old. And as a result, we had aging servers, which initially would have been drop-in network. At first, we had some Cisco routers and so on, which would have been given to the school initially. And those worked pretty well in the early 2000s. But then after we got VoIP telephone systems, we found that the demand on the network was extremely hard. And the technology that we had, the infrastructure that we had, could not handle that workload. So we found that we were having a lot of challenges with dropouts. People who, even on the wired network, you were finding that sometimes you were having systems just going down, losing internet connectivity. There was a lot of bottleneck. The bandwidth was not large enough to handle everything that was happening on the school compound. We had a roll of close to 1,000 students, and we have 3 or 4 computer labs here. This network is set up, our campus is set up in a very unusual way in that all of our buildings are on the circumference of the property. Most other schools, the buildings might be closer to each other, but because of our vast campus space, every single building on the compound had to be connected with a fiber optic backbone. So every building comes back to the MIS room through fiber setup. We find therefore that we have over 19 network cabinets on the compound as well, and with agent switches. So when we went to the fence-to-fence connectivity, initially at first, we would have hired a company through the board of management to buy and install some access points. At that point in time, with funds that we had and the amount of devices we could afford, we decided that we will put some access points in maybe like almost every other or every 2 or 3 rooms and try to have connectivity that way. That did pose some challenges in that the older buildings, because the walls are thick and we have a lot of steel and so on, we found that in some rooms the signal was strong, but in the other rooms we were having challenges where some people were not able to connect at all. And I had to be constantly dealing with the most thing, ma'am, the Wi-Fi is not working, teachers could not get on. Teachers, when they tried to plug into the network points in the classroom, they were having difficulty there as well because some of the connections were not working. And we were very glad when the ministry came on board and decided that they will complete the project and said that we will be able to have this fence-to-fence connectivity done. At that point in time, the gentlemen had to go into the network cabinets. They had to take out all of the cables that were old and not functioning and run new cables so that the access points would work. We found that because we were using older switches and the new access points, even though we had good APs, the switches were not able to handle that workload because they were dropping all the time. So we were still having internet issues. And finally, we were given the okay to change out all of our switches. So I'm pleased to say that right now we have a completely new network setup where we now have Ubiquiti unified switches in all of our network cabinets. And they are working very well now with the new access points. We were able to get additional access points. We have a wing of the school, the industrial arts section, where there was no connectivity at all. And the gentlemen were able to run a fiber optic network connection from one cabinet. They installed a new cabinet and we were able to install what is called some in-walls and APs, so that now even in the workshops down there, all of the workshops have network connectivity. So now we can truly say that we have a real fence-to-fence. We have fence-to-fence in our pavilion. We have fence-to-fence in every single one of the workshops. We have installed access points and so on in the science labs. So now each science lab also have wireless access. We have connectivity in the hall. We have connectivity in the staff room, in the office, and in the classroom blocks. And as a result of that, we can now service and manage all students and teachers as they come in. We also have a guest network. We were able to put the systems to test when we had the COVID monitoring unit came to the school to do the vaccination and so on, and they were able to use the Wi-Fi in the hall. We have different rooms and so on. We also have the VoIP telephone system, and our systems are working very good. We found that Flow, they set up a WLAN and they isolated the telephone system, so that does not interfere with us. However, the Board of Management recently installed a surveillance system, and we now have to work on that because we find that the cameras are kind of hogging the bandwidth. So at St. Leonard's, the fence-to-fence Wi-Fi connectivity is working, and I'm very pleased about the system that we have now because I am able to troubleshoot, whereas before I would have to walk from one building to the other, cabinet to cabinet, to try and find the problem and to troubleshoot, etc. With this fence-to-fence connectivity, I can virtually do it remotely. So I can sit in my office, go on my laptop and so on, and I can see immediately what is the status of the network. I can also check it from on my phone. So even if I am not on the compound and someone says that there's an issue, I can check on my phone and immediately I'm able to determine which switch is down, which switch is having problems. I can also check on individual clients, those who are connected securely by logging in with a password, and also those who are guest clients on the network. And I'm able to see and to be able to make adjustments and changes. I can remotely reboot any of the access points. I can remotely restart a switch. I'm able to tell exactly how many persons are using the network, where the bandwidth is hogging, etc. And I am very thankful for this system because it helps me as a network administrator. It makes my job much easier because those places, the areas where I would have been in doubt before, I do not have that doubt anymore. I know that everything is not completely set up because we still have the gateway to configure, which would give me even more monitoring and be able to generate more reports. But as it is right now, I'm able to log on from anywhere and I can give the status of my network. This has made my job much easier as an ITC, and I am very, very thankful for that ability to be able to monitor the network with this new fence-to-fence connectivity.
Hi, I'm Dr. Adana Grandison, and I'm here to give you a few tips on how to accurately and safely take your blood pressure readings at home. Before taking your measurement, sit in a calm, warm environment. Don't perform any exercise in the preceding 1 hour. No coffee, food, smoking, or even sinus medication in the preceding hour to taking that blood pressure reading. Empty your bladder and bowel. Most readings that are taken at home should be below or at 135 on 85 millimeters of mercury for uncomplicated hypertension. Lower home blood pressure targets might be advisable in persons who have the following conditions: diabetes, chronic renal disease, or coronary heart disease. If several readings are above 140 on 90 millimeters of mercury, make an appointment with your physician immediately. Ensure to take your readings at the same time every day. We advise 2 readings in the morning and 2 readings in the evening initially to profile yourself, taken 1 to 2 minutes apart. However, once you have established a baseline, you can choose a time suitable to your schedule where you can monitor your blood pressure readings.
Everything comes at a cost. And these days, no one profits from the loss, like when a child is forced to trade school day socialization for screen time study, when a disease decides to disrupt our daily routine, and suddenly every one of us is coming undone, losing loved ones' lives and livelihoods, breath and breadwinners, families and festivals and freedoms. God, we feel like it's too much hassle to be human. We will always remember the years the earth spun quieter, but Mother Nature showed us how the simple act of standing still can wage war on an illness. So may we remember how to be our own army, how it takes cooperation for a community to build immunity, how unity can nurse us back to normalcy. Why stop at one family when we could save all?
Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another against vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function. Remove outdoor objects. Make sure that you went to the ATM. Stock up with water. Make sure you clean the guttering lot. What about canned food? Make sure you got some stock up in the room. Make sure you prop up the paling and tie down the roof. Let me start to prepare real soon. Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another against vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function.
We have also had the completion of the electrical upgrades program over the summer, and that was at 7 primary schools. Many of those schools would have been under the Caribbean Development Bank project several years ago, which were in dire need of significant repairs, and we were able to focus on some of those institutions so that, again, we could get the accessibility, not only in terms of improving the electrical component, but also ensuring that our schools move in the direction of having full connectivity, and certainly ensuring that they have all of the technology that is required for students and teachers to operate in the classroom as well. Let me just also say that while we are doing all of these things at this point in time, our discussions have also been very fruitful with the IDB. IDB has been working with us looking at the long-term solutions to a lot of these niggling problems and some of the infrastructural problems that we have. We know that we can't do everything one time in terms of costs and limitations, but we recognize that we have to be proactive, and we've had to do assessments on a number of the schools to try to get an idea of what the cost implications will be if we are to try to identify and prioritize schools that may be in dire need of attention. And so we've been able to work with them to engage a consultant to assist, a consultant team to be able to assist with over 10 schools again that were, I would probably have to say, were some of the worst on the island. And these range in terms of major civil works components that would have had to have been done to these schools in order to either upgrade the electrical component or even to upgrade the Wi-Fi connectivity aspect. And so the intention is then that we will also be securing loan financing as well thereafter to enable us, coming out of that audit, to identify and to prioritize the schools that will now have to be included in the next financial year. What is of interest, though, with this particular project with the IDB is that this will be the first time that we are actually able, at the end of these types of assessments, to have the costings for each of the schools identified. And that is a significant change in the way in which we have operated before as a ministry. And I felt that this is particularly necessary in a time where we have very limited resources, so we need to know what do we prioritize. We also need to know, when we are talking with the international agencies and we're seeking financing, what level of funding may we require from them, or what partner funding may be required. And so this will be certainly the first time that we're able to hit the ground running, and I believe that it will yield to the benefit of certainly the entire education sector. So a lot of these changes that are taking place, yes, with those children being in school, but they are necessary changes, and we've basically had to seize the opportunity that has been presented by COVID to really start the process of making this transformation across the school plans. They know the head of the technical unit will tell you that certainly over the last couple of years, we started to do, I think, up to 41 schools in 1 year. And that was unprecedented. Prior to that, there were only about 17 schools that were touched, and not necessarily in a significant expenditure. But what we have been doing is, in most cases, trying to spend up to at least $200,000 per school, while at the same time trying to make sure that we do the minor works, while at the same time also trying to make sure that we have major capital works projects as well. So in this the upcoming months, you will also see some changes to the George Lamming Primary School. The George Lamming Primary School, it was a recent building, but it has been plagued with a number of structural issues, mainly in relation to Spalding. And as a consequence, we have budgeted some funds to be able to take care of those issues as well. In addition to that, when we did our tour last year, we recognized that there was an area that on one of the classroom floors that was an open space, but which was not utilized by students or teachers because it was not enclosed. And what we have therefore budgeted for at the request of the school, but also at the request of the Ministry of Education's support team, is that we have looked at enclosing the classrooms with a view to providing another location for our special needs students as well. Because in all that we do, I think we recognize that coming out of this pandemic, our special needs students are perhaps going to be the category of students that are greatest affected by this pandemic. And therefore, we have to ensure that while we are preparing for all of the other children to return to school, that we pay particular attention to the needs of those students and ensure that we have the appropriate accommodation available to those students in the foreseeable future. So I just wanted to take this opportunity this morning to just highlight some of the major works that have been ongoing. This site in particular, I can say to you that the work here should be completed within the next few days from what the contractors indicated. The good thing is that this institution, I think once it is completed, should be able to house between 50 to 100 students here. It is not going to be a large secondary school, but we have already installed the interim director. Our intention is shortly to have the approval of cabinet for the board of management, since it will now be operating as a secondary school. But in addition to that, to make sure that we have the specialized teachers to be able to also support the staff here to ensure that the students are well catered to as they return to school after this pandemic. So I look forward to the start of term, hopefully, God willing, by early January. We are in preparations within the Ministry of Education as well as the Ministry of Health and Wellness in looking at the revisions to our manuals, looking at how we deal with COVID-19 cases going forward, where students may have contracted the virus. We are also in the process of installing the sanitizing stations in the classrooms as well. And we've been meeting over the course of the next couple of weeks with our various stakeholders to bring them up to date as to our plans, and certainly being guided at all times by the science, but also being guided by our various international stakeholders and, of course, the Ministry of Health and Wellness.